Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I don't know if some of you are celebrating Thanksgiving or just spending too much time on Amazon for Black Friday. Whatever. It's really nice to see you all again. I see we have already a bunch of people on the chat, and as usual, we are right now live on many platforms. So if you're new, my name is Amandine Flachs, and we are going to be together for about an hour. We have a guest, Adam Nygate, with me today, who is the CEO and founder of 418sec. But before we start talking about his experience and fire up our question, I'd like to invite you all to just jump into the chat, ask us your own questions anytime, or just say hi. It's always good to see new faces. I can see the numbers and I can see about how many people are here around us, but I can't tell who's new, who's not new, and so it's always nice to see familiar faces in the chat. We see we already have Luke on the chat, and that's always a pleasure to have you here. Before we start, Adam, before I start asking you a bunch of questions, I'd like to ask you one thing. So the other day we were chatting about this interview and this stream, and it was at the same time that I was doing a survey on Dota 2, and you say, yeah, I completed the survey. So are you a gamer? Are you really playing lots of games? Like, what the game you're playing at the moment?
Sure. I mean, I'm probably less of a gamer nowadays than I was a few years ago. But no, still very much in love with my setup and playing. But yeah, I play a lot of Dota 2. But in most recent days, I've been playing a lot of a game called Satisfactory,
Oh, yes.
which is kind of like a 3D game where you have to automate mines and building things, kind of like Minecraft, I would say. But it's really good fun.
My partner and I, we were thinking about starting playing this game, but then we thought that would be dangerous for us. So that's the shame that we had to kind of change the format, because it would have been so much fun. It's always even funnier to have people here on the stream who are also gamers when we used to play games. And as we were talking before, we definitely need to bring back something maybe for the end of the year. If anyone on the chat has any suggestions, game we should be playing, or some founders that you know are playing games, or whatever, like anyone in the community, maybe we should do something with the regular viewers or something like that. I don't know. Suggestions are definitely open. But that's it for this. Let's just dive right in. Adam, it's super cool to have you here today. Can you, just to get started, tell you a bit more about your own background, your startup, what you're doing now, with your journey so far?
Sure. So my journey is probably a long one. I started very young in programming. I got in trouble when I was younger for hacking and all of this kind of stuff. And I got a really good opportunity quite early on to move overseas. So I think when I was about 16 years old, I moved over to Singapore for a few years, and I kind of got straight into work. I actually worked for an ed tech company for about 5 years, and that was across Singapore and also Australia. So I moved to Australia for about 3-4 years also. And that's when I started. That's when I decided to kick off my first venture. Me and my ex-boss, we liked Bluetooth beacon technology, this whole idea of micro tracking people using smartphones, and so we wanted to take a product to market for it. We unfortunately got in with some wrong crowds. We started selling a lot of tech to Kazakhstan as an example, so did a lot of work out over there, but it didn't really fit right with me to sell people tracking to these type of places. So I left that startup, returned back to the UK, started working for the government. So I did something called security architecture with them. So just making sure the Gov UK site and these kind of systems stayed safe. And then following that, I moved into consultancy before starting my current venture, 418sec, which is all about protecting open source code. So trying to actively fix vulnerabilities, find vulnerabilities, these kind of things.
Great. Yeah, I love that the fact that you haven't just a linear path into the space, but you actually started very early. Like you've always been around hacking and cyber security. I understand that there is 418 sec, but there is also hunter and trusted. And so for what I understood from checking out your website is that 418 sec is kind of the umbrella company, like the big company, and then underneath it you have a hunter and trusted. So can you tell us a bit more about how does this all work and fit together?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we kind of decided to divide up the three things, if you will, and it's because for us, so the main thing that we're working on is Hunter, and for anybody that isn't aware, Hunter is what we say is like the bug bounty board to protect open source, right? So you go there, you can disclose, newly found vulnerabilities in open source code. You can also fix it. And we will reward you. It gives you the opportunity to learn and develop your skills. And but this is all for a really good cause, right? To kind of protect the wider open source ecosystem and to kind of get your name out there on GitHub and these kind of places. So we've always identified Hunter as like a good Samaritan, altruistic kind of thing. So we would love to kind of like turn it into a non-profit one day or something similar to this. However, we do have like a for-profit arm. This would be Trusted as an example. And so the whole idea here is to sell, the way we kind of generate money for the bug bounty board is by selling accountability effectively to enterprises. So we say, okay, we'll monitor over your open source code usage, we'll find vulnerabilities, we'll fix them, and so you the company can remain safe, and we channel that money to the security researchers, the ethical hackers who are doing the good work on the bug bounty board.
It's very interesting because with Hunter, when I first came across it quite some time ago, I've been in your Discord group for quite some time. I'm not active at all there, but I was very curious and it was very nice to jump in. This kind of model where you're trying to make the entire open source community more secure, but also remunerate in some way contributors. It's something that I've seen only in the crypto scene when I was working in blockchain, and I think it's good to see that also in something that is not necessarily related to blockchain because it has some connotation. So you have one offer for the developers and one offer for the enterprises. What are the main challenges for them, and is your primary objective more about making the open source community and ecosystem more secure, or is it also to bring more people into open sourcing their own project? Because I have a friend of mine, Eddie, who is all about getting more people into open source, either as developers or for companies to open their code. What's your main objective here?
Yeah, so it's definitely the latter. Like what we see is an opportunity here, which is that security-minded people at the moment, all of the other bug bounty boards out there, like HackerOne or BugCrowd or Integrity, they it's all for proprietary systems. It's all to protect companies and brands and all of this kind of stuff. But in our opinion, open source is the future. And so what we're really trying to do is to take these security specialists, these security-minded individuals, and to encourage them to focus their energies in the open source ecosystem. So, and these are all new people effectively, new people joining GitHub and getting started in the code and learning about it, right? Like, getting their name out there. They're now a contributor to React or to Angular or whatever it might be, and this can provide them with a really great profile. They can use this to get jobs in the future, but also they can just have a cool community to hang out with and to make these kind of contributions.
Have you seen that with the current situation, with people being more at home, there are more contributors or people who want to showcase their skills in a different way than through their job?
Oh, definitely. Like I would say that a significant portion of our users kind of do this as like a side thing, right? Sure, they like the money out of it, the bounties that we pay, but a lot of them do it just to develop their own skill sets. So, that they get to learn about how other people are finding these vulnerabilities, and most importantly, how to just to try and fix this stuff so they can then, develop that part of their own skill set and apply that in their own career.
And so you're not just building one company with different aspects and different target audience, but you're also building distinct brands, and more importantly, a community. And well, I completely know how hard this is already to just focus on one community and growing and building one community and managing on the day to day. But here you have also to kind of think about your enterprise's activities and build different brands at the same time. What the secret behind it? What the secret behind the choice? But also, how do you just do it at the same time?
I would say a lot of stress and a lot of late nights. No, you're totally right. Building one product and one brand is difficult enough, and I think we may have bit more than we could chew on trying to launch two brands and two products. So we take it step by step, day by day. At the moment, we're purely focused on building the open source side of things, building this community and the bug bounty board. We're not really focusing on the enterprise of things at the moment. It was just we launched it to tease it with a few proof of concept clients and whatnot. But all of our energy is focused on the community and the open source part of things.
Okay, I see. So the secret is to do it one by one.
Definitely.
Got it. I also know that you got a bit of funding, and when I quickly asked you about it, you said that you had an orthodox way of fundraising. I'd love to know more about that, but also I think it's very useful for people to understand what you got before you start having any money in, because I think that's kind of the challenge when you're building an early stage company, is to know when is the time to start fundraising? Do you have enough? Are you going to get a lot of feedback saying that you're too early? Because it's going to happen anyway, but is it true? Are you too early? What do other people have when they start getting some money?
Definitely. And I think it also depends upon like the amount you're looking to raise to a great extent. Our journey, was a bit unorthodox. So we like the entire journey was, we started the company probably about 2 years ago. And it was very much, a side project, just working away at late nights, on weekends and all of these kind of things, prior to going full time or trying to raise any funds. And then it kind of, but a lot of investors, a lot of VCs, they won't even take you seriously if you're not, if you don't have the conviction to go full time on your company, or if you have any money to invest any of your own capital, they will never risk their own. So there always comes, the trigger point. And so this for us was in, I would say, August, maybe September last year. And we were looking to join an incubator at the time called Cylon, which is a cybersecurity specific incubator here in the UK. And we were very fortunate enough to get to the interview stage, and after talking to the MD, we got accepted. And this for us was, tipped the conviction, of our internal to go full time and run with it. So we left all of our jobs. We started the incubator. It was a 3-month program. It was absolutely an amazing time, and connected us with tons of VCs. And it actually got us, 2 proof of concept clients on our first iteration of a product. And off of the back of this is what really enabled us to fundraise. So this was only a small amount of money. It was pre-seed. It was very much just to keep us alive, so we could keep searching for the opportunity or for the angle to kind of capture upon the opportunity. But in about March, we got our first lead investor here at Seeds Camp, so one of Europe's biggest seed investors, and they've been really good to us. They're really very knowledgeable, really help equip you with the skills and with the connections to raise with others. And after this, we picked up a few angels, and then later in the year, about June, we decided to extend a top up, and we brought on board a few more VCs, this time from the States. So we brought on a VC called Haystack and Ace Cap, and a few more angels from the States as well. So it was quite a spread out journey. It wasn't like you sprint a fundraise in, I don't know, 6 weeks, whatever it might be, and you get everything committed. For us, it was more, a slow burn. We wanted to get the right people with the right motivations, the right incentives, and who also believed in us as a team than any form of metric that we could currently describe. We're still very early days. At these points, we didn't necessarily have traction or anything major. But they very much bought into us and the team, which was for us like instrumental to really have people backing you as an individual over just okay, my monthly recurring revenue is X, or my monthly active users is Y, or these kind of things.
Especially in Europe, VCs are not super excited by risky opportunities, so they try to de-risk at the maximum, which means that sometimes it's not necessarily investing in innovation, or it may be easier to get this discussion going with angels. How many people were part of your team when you decided all to go full-time for the accelerator or the incubator?
I think there was 3 of us at the time when we decided to commit and go full-time after having worked together for, the team like kind of grew over time. So one of us or 2 of us were working on it for about 18 months before we went on the incubator. And then the third one started about 3 or 4 months before the incubator.
And then what was your priority as soon as you got a bit of money? So I guess because it hasn't been suddenly lots of money, it has been slightly different in a sense that you didn't necessarily have a big projection in terms of everything you're going to spend. Like, it's not like people usually do. You ask for a large amount of money and you explain exactly how you're going to spend that. I guess because you've been having a bit of money here and there step by step, it has been slightly different for that. So what was your focus and your approach explaining how you're going to spend this money? I guess it may have been with hires, right?
No. So we were lucky, actually. So when we started the fundraise in March, we'd actually just launched Hunter in February.
Okay.
And so we'd already seen early indications of traction at launch. So for example, we had a gut feeling that when we took the bounty board live, it would take, let's say, like a week to see any kind of fixes flow in for the vulnerabilities. And we were extremely surprised that within, I think, 24 or 48 hours, basically every single vulnerability we had put on the website was fixed. And this only, grew through February. We were actually like struggling to keep up with like uploading vulnerabilities to the platform. Which was a really, really great sign. And I think this provided a lot of conviction to the investors. But for us, the money was always about providing an initial pot of capital for the bounties. So, we were like, okay, how many bounties or how many fixes do we think we could pay out per month? Let's form a budget around that. And then let's look to raise capital to cover those costs in the short term prior to having any form of actual revenue stream coming in. So this was what the budget was for, and since then we've had some really, really great traction. I mean, to date we've fixed around about 250 vulnerabilities, and one of the big goals that we had for the year was to be on track to fix 10% of all the vulnerabilities found this year in open source code. So as an example, last year, about 6,000 vulnerabilities were found. And so our objective for the year was to fix 600. And we're currently on track for that. So this was also a really good milestone to kind of work towards. And even one of the interesting things that we found was, we use OKRs to kind of measure our own performance. And for anybody who doesn't know, an OKR are kind of just like metrics. You want to achieve this month, 50 fixes as an example. And what we found interesting was that when we opened up to the community on Discord about our goals, about our OKRs, they were just as driven by them as us. And they, rallied behind this, let's do it, let's push to find 50 vulnerabilities, let's push to fix 50 vulnerabilities, which was amazing to see. So it might be a cool little trick for anybody who's, in a community kind of based business to really be open and transparent with your community, because, if they like what you're working on, they'll rally behind you and help to to go for what you're trying to achieve.
That's so true. And it's so motivating to see that when you start building a community and, you know, you really start building personal relationship at the end. You see the familiar faces, the one who are always active and the one who are bringing more people in. And so when you start sharing and you see that your community is behind you, it also comforts you in the idea that, yeah, maybe it does make sense, right? If people are find that it makes sense, it actually does make sense even from people outside, so that's very good. Just coming back quickly on the investor side, you have a business that is kind of dual B2B and B2C. Investors tend to be either B2C or B2B, and many people that I've met over the years, they are kind of sometimes very strict about being either interested in enterprises sales or being interested in B2C, because that's kind of different approaches. And so, how did you approach that? Did you really have to kind of not fight, but really sell it to investors because you have this dual model? Was it something that made them tick or not at all?
Sure. I mean, so when we talk to investors currently, we really only talk about the B2C angle as in the community angle, you know, our users and whatnot. We don't really, we're so far away from being enterprise focused. And, you know, as mentioned earlier, this is very strategic. You know, it's very difficult for a 4-person team to develop one new product, let alone 2 new products.
Yeah.
So, you know, taking this one step at a time we were very, you know, transparent and front about this with the investors in the beginning. And so, you know, they were behind this, you know, and also we were very fortunate that a lot of our investors truly understand open source, the community-driven value of it all, and they do a lot of open source investment. So they understand that, you know, it will take time to build a following, to get traction on your GitHub repository or whatever it might be, and then to prior to determining a, you know, economic model or business model that succeeds. So we were very, very fortunate having investors that, you know, had this type of attitude.
That definitely helps because there may be lots of misconceptions around open source from people who are not in the space. And I guess breaking this barrier or this misconception is an entire process on its own.
Exactly, definitely. Yeah. A lot of them are just like, hold up. So all of your defensibility, all of your IP in this code, you're giving it away on for free on the internet. And no, it's a very open source is kind of like an emergent, you know, phenomenon. It's very hard to truly understand how it works or like why it is generating as much value as it is. But once you make this realization and you look to some, you know, example companies, MongoDB as an example, you truly understand, or even stuff like Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
You truly understand the value of kind of like community-driven development and you know, doing something for the collective and all of this kind of stuff.
Luke on the chat says a great story, so your story really resonates out there. What's the next big step for you? You mentioned really focusing on the B2C aspect and growing the community and solving more vulnerabilities. So what's the next big step of your development for the end of the year and early 2021?
Sure. So I would say, so at the moment, we're really deep into experimentation. We have got a really great opportunity at the moment to really find the best product for the bug hunting community. So we're truly exploring different ways of working, different angles that will help them achieve what drives them. So, you know, one of the most recent experiments we're running is, you know, money as a driver versus kind of more like self-development and collaboration. The problem when you give money is it's kind of like a zero-sum game, right? Only one can be a winner. But we wanted to try an angle where, you know, work together, try new things, you know, communicate and collaborate with each other and learn from your peers. And so this is a recent experiment we're trying. So this is what we expect to take us till the end of this year at least. Early next year, we'll look to, you know, pin into one of these models and really start running with it. And the kind of the ultimate goal for next year for the team is actually to migrate to the States. We really want to move over there, do our next round there, prior to looking to commercialize. So when we're ready, once we've kind of really nailed this model for Hunter, we'll look to do this.
Did you have an office before COVID, before the entire situation, and did you have to go through moving everyone to remote working?
We were actually pretty lucky. So we did get an office, but it was about 3 weeks before the COVID lockdown. So we were all remote working before then.
Okay.
We shacked up with Seed Camp at their London offices. And 3 weeks later, their offices are at the Google campus, and so the entire campus got shut down. So we had to move out, and we were basically working remotely since then. In recent, we've tried to get like a co-working space that we can gather at every few days, just to maintain those social relationships and whatnot. And this has been good for us. It's unfortunate with the lockdown that we haven't been able to maintain this, but remote working is tough, or it was tough for us in the beginning, but it's getting better.
It's interesting because your business is all about, well, online stuff, right? So we can imagine that it's not necessarily the obvious type of businesses that is the most affected by the situation. What was the difficult part? Was it to just not be able to be brainstorming ideas and naturally communicating, or was it really to get the job done?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's stuff like this. I spoke to someone recently about this, and what I realized was that big companies, large enterprises like, I don't know, Morgan Stanley or HSBC or the government, or any kind of large entity or organization, because people in it normally have well-defined job roles. They know exactly what they're going to do day to day. It means that if they go home and they do it from home, as long as they've got the equipment and the connections necessary, they, generally speaking, should be able to do it and should become more productive. But in a startup, when your life is about moving fast, solving problems quickly, and so almost like keeping a pulse on things, it requires an awareness and a versatility and a flexibility that I don't know if remote working is so conducive of. It's being around people, brainstorming, sharing ideas, checking with each other on their intuition, on your intuition. This has been really fruitful for us to find what works, what doesn't work, and where we think we're going to go next. And so to lose that when you start working from home, it's tough. And we've tried like so many online tools to create water cooler type environments, but nothing's like real life.
Yes. I completely get what you mean. I used to work remotely years before the confinement, and I remember working in a very international team, and the few times we got to meet all together was so useful and so helpful for the rest of my job, because I could then really quickly get into the chat, ask some people some things directly, and building the same thing completely remotely is really hard. I think a mix of format is really helpful to at least meet in real life from time to time, or find some occasions or whatever, either it is like big meetings or retreat or whatever, but having some kind of personal interactions really help. Okay. I also want to say, if anyone in the chat has any further question, please pop your question now. That's a good time, especially now that we have a better understanding of what Adam is working on. And also big thanks to Metamurai for resubscribing on Twitch. That's amazing. Another Prime subscribe, so thanks a lot for that. Okay, so we touched on different aspects, and I had a question and I can't remember. I wanted to ask you, you said earlier that you starting your career hacking and early, but you didn't really say how early it was, how young you were, and also what kind of hacking you did. Can you tell us a bit more about this type of experience, and if you ever thought that you'd end up building your own company in cybersecurity?
Sure. Well, I don't know how much I can talk about, but I will try to talk about as much as I can. So I think I started off, well, when I first started getting into programming, I was probably around maybe 14-ish. And it was majorly like website development. I was a gamer, back then as well. And so I was always loved the idea of having a clan website, right? It's like a forum where, all you and your clan mates can come and talk and all this kind of stuff. And so started getting into HTML and PHP development and all of these kind of things. And then I wanted to figure out, okay, how do you make applications on the computer? And so I learned VB.net and some desktop-based terrible programming languages. And I found a forum. It's called Hack Forums, and this was it's like an online community of I don't know, script kiddies, really, like just people trying to they all want to learn how to hack, and you get some good content on there and some cool people, but it's just like a very early community for people to try to learn. And on here is where I really started. So I wanted to figure out, okay, how do you make a virus, what's a keylogger, all of this kind of stuff, so I started making these kind of things. And I got in trouble eventually for something called social engineering, which is like it's a very complicated way of saying a con man, I guess. But it was all about learning about how systems work in organizations, and then trying to get something that you shouldn't get out of that organization by convincing employees to do it. And so like one of the things that I used to do, which was really fun, was there used to be a Skype service called, I think it was called Skype 411 or Google 411. But basically, it just allowed you to call phone numbers in America for free. And so we would spend, we'd be up at 2, 3 a.m. sometimes, calling, I don't know, Walmarts in some town, wherever in the States. And we would convince like one of the store workers that we were calling from Activision or Blizzard or something like this, and convince them to give us like a CD key to a game over the phone to validate that the CD key was legitimate or something. And it did pay off a few times. We would get these CD keys, and then we could play the games for free. And it was really good fun. And I did this till I was about 17, and then I got a big brown envelope through the door that said Defendant Adam Nygate on it. And this was the time that my dad said, Adam, you're about to become an adult, and there's going to be harsh punishments if from the law if you continue on this route. So I basically all dropped the illegal stuff then, and this was about the time that we moved to Singapore, and so I started a new life over there.
I think over there they're not really flexible, right? I think that the rules are the rules, and it's pretty hard. It's harder on people than here, right?
Definitely. Singapore is a very, very tough country. I mean, like things like any of the things that we may take for granted in London, even things like chewing gum as an example. Like in Singapore, it's illegal to drop a piece of chewed gum. It's illegal, first of all, to buy chewing gum in Singapore, but it's like punishable by like community service if and they truly enforce this. If you ever go to Singapore, you'll see that the streets are some of the cleanest streets in the world, and just because like chewing gum is outlawed over there. And so anytime you fly into Singapore from, I don't know, anywhere else, all your friends will always ask you to bring back gum, and you're kind of a smuggler, which is good fun.
I can't imagine that. I didn't know about that. I've interviewed Fajar, who is in Singapore, and I have a few friends from there, but every time I'm learning something different and something new. We have a question from Luke, who asks if you have any tips for building a community. You have already an existing, quite active and a good sized community, and it's growing. So any tips for that?
This is a good question. I would say like building a community is I would say it's like one of the most difficult things that you can do, truly. Because you're asking these people to buy into something, to spend their time and their free energy around something. And so first of all, like working out the type of user that you want in this community. Okay, you want a developer, you want a security person, whatever this kind of thing might be. It's really, really important. And then finding where are the existing places that these people hang out. So one of the things that we did is, so we knew that we wanted to target security professionals as an example, or early or amateurs who are early in their security career as an example. And so we did a lot of research finding either existing Discord communities or even Facebook groups or forums where these people hang out, and just preaching the kind of thing that we're trying to build and seeing if people wanted to get involved in that. That I don't know, is probably the best thing that I can suggest, is just finding really, really strong channels where these people hang out, and really narrowing in on your user segment. And this is one of the most difficult things I think an entrepreneur has to deal with, because whenever an entrepreneur has a product, they want to sell it to the world, and they can see how every single person out there can use it, and they are so excited. And so when any asks them, okay, but what type of user is going to use this? They're like, oh, everyone, And although ultimately this may be true, in the early days, it's really, really important to really narrow down into a specific segment and really craft your early iterations around this one type of person. And then down the line, after you've kind of met some form of saturation around this segment, this is when you could look to expand to something larger and all-encompassing. And this was a lesson that we learned, that although we were like, okay, every single hacker is going to want to use this, post this in every single forum we can find and all this kind of stuff. It turns, for us, focusing on the bug hunter as an example was a really early, really strong user segment that we could look to onboard quickly and get them driven, get them aligned to what we're trying to achieve relatively quickly.
Do you find that it's enough to provide the platform and the tools, or do you feel that you really have to activate every day the community, check up on them, always try to initiate something, or do you feel that there is something going on its own and it's already live by itself?
No, definitely you have to drive it. Yeah. If you're lucky enough, I suppose after you hit a certain size, there'll be this organic creation of conversations, between community members, and this is when that you've really created a thriving and successful community. But otherwise, definitely, it's important that we constantly stimulate the community, whether that, so for example, if you're building a Discord community, developing a Discord bot that posts relevant information for them. For example, one of the things that we're working on is a Discord bot that whenever we upload a new bounty, it broadcasts it to the channel so that everybody can then race to take on the challenge, as an example. But so no, driving is very, very important. Motivating them is very, very important, and also quick response times. I think this is one of the things that we've realized quite quickly, is that there is a correlation between responding quickly to people in the channel and how active the channel remains. So this is one of the things that we've learned recently, and one of the things that we're looking to get better at over time.
That's interesting. Really. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Discord, but it can also be very confusing what you can do and how you can actually do that. I've seen so many channels coming up with some interesting way of having different, sub-channels, but also bots. But once you're in front of your Discord and look at all the different options, and you're like, shit, how do I do the same? How do I find what's interesting for my community and how to activate that? But I find it very interesting that you say that how fast you answer is going to have such an impact. I haven't necessarily noticed that, but also because I've been quite fast to answer in the past. Well, not with my own community, but previously. You also mentioned that you've been through an incubator, and you said it was very helpful. Is it something that you'd recommend to first-time founders or early-stage founders? And what has been the main benefit to go through such a program?
No, definitely. Incubators, I think, are truly invaluable. I think, so just to create a distinction between an incubator and an accelerator, So like, I think because most programs you hear it, so Techstars, if you know Techstars, or many of the other ones are accelerators, and so what they focus on is like, you've got a product, a product that like has achieved product solution or problem solution fit, as an example, right? And you just need to be put in front of customers so that you can work on your sales, get a few POCs as an example. I think accelerators are fundamental for this, and EY runs one called, I think it's called Scale, and so there's a lot out there that do a really good job of helping early stage founders get customers. But an incubator for us it's much more about putting yourself in situations to do these types of customer validation interviews and truly test your vision on a wide variety of people. So the program that we went on, it was 3 months long, and the Tuesday through Thursday was basically like speed dating. We would meet for 20 minutes 10 times a day or whatever it was, a variety of people. And this could be an information security manager at Arsenal Football Club, or it could be the group CISO at Nando's, or it could be a security architect at Deutsche Bank. So obviously, because we're in security, it's in the security vein. But it was really helpful to just test this sale on different people who in the future may be part of the sales process, and to understand what motivates them, what drives them. For example, if you're trying to sell it to an engineer, engineers are always going to be more for tools rather than like enterprise services, as an example. So we learned very quickly that our initial iteration wasn't a strong sell to a security architect or a security engineer, as an example, but it was really strong as a sell to CISOs, or information security managers, or these kind of groups, as well as also being introduced to investors. I mean, we met with, I don't know how many, I would say probably about 40 plus London's leading investors. So Plug and Play Capital, Atomico, Index, MMC, and to the side of the fundraising, or just trying to get their feedback on what your pitch resonates like, and all of these kind of things. It's really I think important and valuable to learn about what are the motivations and how does venture capital work. So understanding things like they run on the a four-year cycle, as an example, and how their fee structure works with their carry and whatnot. This is important so that we can understand what truly motivates them. Why do they respond like they respond, and all of these kind of things. And this is, I think, truly the opportunity that an incubator or an accelerator will give you. R1 was truly exciting. We were actually hosted by an organization called the Winton Group, who are a hedge fund here in the UK, at their Hammersmith location. And they had really nice decked out offices. So it was kind of like working from a Fortune 500 company headquarters for 3 months. So they had on-site baristas and all this. It was almost a bit spoiling, to be honest. And we had to then leave this come December. Okay, January, February, we worked from home, and then March was lockdown. So it was a bit of sharp decline. Yeah. But no, it was really good fun and really invaluable. And I would recommend it to everyone, first-time founders or people who are early stage, definitely.
I guess you touched on something very important, the fact that when you start understanding how investment and how VC works, you better understand the position, so you can better position yourself once you have to be pitching, and also having the opportunity to build a relationship once you're not fundraising really helps later on, because you can have a more open discussion and you're not in a pitching mode. And I found that approaching investors when you're fundraising is very different from approaching them just to get to know them, understand the fund, understand how it works. And so when you have programs that let you have such a discussion rather than just an investor day when you're going to be pitching, it's very much helpful, and more helpful than just the end day where you're just pitching your thing. If you have the opportunity to join a program that takes your hand and makes the first introduction, so you can better understand the space and just build personal relationship. It's really much more helpful. Do you have any other tips for aspiring founders, especially people who are interested in building something in the urban open source and in the open source community?
Sure. So in open source specifically, I think it's really important to have really good kind of like open source habits, if you will. Like we also suffer from this, that we don't open source as much as we should, and also like our like Git comment style was pretty lacking. We've recently like implemented a standard that we now have to all get used to, otherwise it throws up warnings and errors. So having really kind of good Git hygiene in open source is important, and sharing your project with existing communities before you build your own is a really good way of getting first contributors. And when it comes to investment, I think Atomico, they recently did a good paper on open source investment in Europe as an example, and there are a few kind of key metrics that a open source investor will look at. For example, like the stars of a repository, how many contributors, what are the frequency of contributions from external contributors, and they'll look at proxy metrics as well. They'll look at things like, okay, if you do have a Discord community, which is quickly becoming the most popular way to have a real-time thriving open source community, is they'll look at things like, what's your growth on the Discord community, what's the activity of the channels, these kind of things. But I think there's never been a better time to get fundraising or to build an open source startup in Europe. I think it's specifically thriving at the moment. So definitely is a good time. And then I think on a more wider note, tips for first time founders. I think that if you're fortunate enough to have enough money to bootstrap your business or to keep yourself afloat while you're still in the early stages of your journey, then this is great. But I think for a lot of us, we don't have this privilege, and so you'll be talking to angels, and angels are a whole nother breed of investor, because a VC, in the end of the day, they're investing somebody else's money, and while they do look to protect it, they don't look as fiercely to protect it as an angel. Angels will be much harder, in my opinion, characters. They will push you for stronger indications of traction or success. And as you said, Amandine, in Europe specifically, they're extremely risk averse, right? So they whether an angel would ever, or like whether that kind of like the wider angel networks here in the UK would ever invest in an open source startup, I don't know. But you can find really great key angels. Like one of our great key angels is Michael Pennington, who co-founded Gumtree, and another guy called Will Neal, who co-founded a bunch of startups, a bunch of B2B startups over here in the UK. And this gave us a nice portfolio of unique talents to leverage as we grow. Okay, so if we wanted to B2C marketing advice, Michael is your man. If you want to start thinking about sales tech on an enterprise scale, Will is always gonna be able to provide really great advice as an example. And so looking to angels is really advantageous, but recognizing that they're parting with their own money, and so the conversation is always going to be much more difficult. So just to take this into consideration.
I think that is super useful for anyone right now with some idea of building a company in the space. I took some notes of all the resources you mentioned. Hopefully I managed to get them right and put them all in the description in the video on YouTube. Is there anything else, any resources, maybe some blogs, podcast, anything you're listening or book or whatever that you also would like to recommend and would like me to add to this description?
Sure, sure. So, a few key books that I've been reading recently, which have helped me immensely. So, I mean, the classic one is Eric Ries's Lean Startup, and this is just a really great, opinionated book about his journey and a few other entrepreneurs over in the state and how they apply, the lean methodology of failing fast, small teams, and keeping agile and these kind of things. And there's an iteration of this book by another author called Ash Moyer, who wrote a book called Running Lean, and he's got a series on the books. But Running Lean is more of a kind of methodological approach of how to actually implement a lean startup. So they talk about problem question interviews, solution interviews, about acquisition, like the 5 key metric funnels, so acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. These 2 books are really, really good just to equip founders with base mindsets of how to run a company, I think. And that there's tons of other resources out there which will give you
Too many.
different flavors.
Too many.
Yeah, definitely. There's like yeah. We were actually having a debate the other day with a team about, if we try one of these frameworks, we were saying, okay, which one do we pick? And we found like 6 of the kind of like the holy grail tier of frameworks, and we'll look into them. But I think these 2 as a basis for founders is really valuable, just to kind of put you in a mindset that makes you think about, okay, don't run before you can walk. Don't build your products prior to actually testing if the vision, if the value proposition can work with your customers or your users, as an example. And then what else? I think if you are going to be fundraising, I think finance books are going to be helpful. There's especially from angels, because there's a lot of angels, although they do part with their money, because they believe in your company and all of these kind of things, there's a lot of government incentives as to why angels or certain types of venture capital should go into startups. And so as an example, you've got like what's called SCIS or EIS or VCTs. And so if you are looking for this kind of like early stage money and you want to have like a leg up, you don't just want to be selling to venture capital yet because you might not have traction. So if you sell to venture capital who are incentivized to invest in early stage startups, this can be beneficial to you. Finding VCs who have what's called a VCT, which is incentivized to go early stage, or angels who regularly take SCIS or EIS tickets. This would also work in your favor. Also, I'm not sure if any of you are looking for kind of like legal assistance for your startup. There is a really, really great platform called Seed Legals. It's a fully digital platform that helps you create all kinds of contracts for your people, but also helps you with the actual documentation for a fundraise. So they've been truly helpful, and we've saved probably thousands of pounds by using this kind of service versus using lawyers. So I would heavily recommend checking that as well.
Fantastic. I took some notes. Thank you very much, Adam. This has been super useful and super interesting. My notebook is full now of scribble. No, you can't see it because of the light, but lots of scribble everywhere, and very exciting. I really like what you're doing. And where can we find you if anyone wants to get more information about your company or just follow your progress? What's the best way to do that?
Sure. So for like more big things, come our Twitter for at 418sec is where we push all of the major things. Come join us on Discord as well. We've got if you off of our Twitter, you can get onto our website and you come. Feel free to join the Discord community, and we're in there every day talking with everybody to really help protect open source. But if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Adam, I think my username is Adam_Nygate. And I'm always here to help as much as I can. If anybody needs, connections to VCs, or they want advice on starting up or tech or open source, feel free to reach out, and I'm all ears.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'll also add that to the video description. So the video of today will be available on my YouTube channel on Monday afternoon, certainly. I usually, publish it around Monday afternoon. Time to do some edits, add some things on the description, and well, to do the usual YouTube stuff. Thanks everyone for watching. It has been such a pleasure to be here. If you want to check out our previous interview, be sure to have a look at my YouTube channel. And the best way to reach out, I also have a Discord group, but also I am super active on Twitter. I think Twitter is my main, so feel free to check it out and just come say hi. And also, as I said before, I want some ideas to do something with more gaming toward the end of the year. So if you have any ideas, suggestions, or anything, be sure to drop me a line, because I am definitely I'm lacking some time right now. I'm getting busier and busier, and I want to do more with the channel and with these interviews. So it's like a big problem, right? I wanted to do more, but without the time for that. So any suggestions are super welcome. Anyway, I wish you all a fantastic weekend ahead. Enjoy this weekend. Don't spend too much time on Amazon or like browsing Black Friday sales for nothing. Looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for another live video AMA. Thanks everyone.